Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by DraftKings. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. Got ourselves a Mailbag podcast. Only a few more of these for the rest of the year. Justin, how you doing?
Hey, Bobby Skinner. I missed you. I really did miss you. Now, for the podcast crowd, you can't see it, but for the YouTube crowd, you can see it. When Bobby Skinner logged on to this call, I was taken back by the little scroll that's thrown on his face. So Bobby Skinner is a different man. I thought you were going to come back with a whole mountain man beard, but you are a different man. How are you feeling, Bobby? This is the biggest question that the world is waiting for an answer for. How are you feeling? What was your life like when you were dead this past week?
I'm still dying, but I needed to come back to the podcast. I couldn't go any further without doing the show. Yeah, I freaking got the flu, not coronavirus, the flu, and I was dealing with the flu, dealing with doing work with the flu, and then all of a sudden I start feeling unbelievably weak and can't breathe from walking across my house, and just like, all right, I guess this is just part of the flu. 4 days like that, where it's just like I couldn't do anything, didn't eat for like 3 days straight. And then finally decided to go to the doctor, and I guess I still have it, a freaking respiratory infection. So still dealing with that. I can still feel it right now. My body's kind of tingling right now because it's like stressing itself. But that's how I'm doing.
Found it to be ironic that Julian made a press release today saying that you're back, like, you know how Michael Jordan announced that he was back to going back to basketball from baseball. So you had your flu game like a week ago, and now you're still having your flu game, and we announced you coming back like in the style of Michael Jordan. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a Michael Jordan thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, freaking I couldn't breathe for like 4 straight days. Literally, like, I'd walk across my house and have to lay down and...
That is so bizarre. I don't know if I've had the flu, and I was just out, but, coughing, but I was...
Yeah, I've had it was post-flu respiratory infection.
And for you not just not be on the podcast, but not to tweet and just be totally checked out, like... This was the worst case of somebody having the flu that I think I ever came across. Ever.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is.
Congratulations.
Dealing with it. All right, we're back.
Bobby, I have a question for you. What do you think of this football team right now, man? You've been gone for the last week, where this has probably been the toughest week to talk about this football team without Jones, and Jones's future's murky. And I kind of hate you for that we've had to improvise so much, but how you feeling about the New York Football Giants, Bobby? How you feeling, man?
It's the end of the season. That's how I'm feeling. That the season is ending in about a month. I wish there wasn't a 17th game. That's how I feel. I wish there wasn't a 17th game to deal with this year. Yeah, they stink. They stink. That's how I feel. And there's nothing to look forward to with Daniel Jones. Without Daniel Jones, there's not much for me to look forward to. I did watch the film on this game, though. So I did do that today. So, yeah. But I didn't do an O-line report because I can't do an O-line report right now.
No.
But let's get into the mailbag questions, though.
Yeah.
All right, take it away, Steve.
Mail time. The mail's here. Come on. Bye, guys. Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
All right, thanks, Steve from Blues Clues. Justin, let's get into the mail.
All right, first question is coming from Matthew McFadden at Matty McFaddy96. That's a fun name. He's conflicted. Matthew's conflicted. Part of him wants Joe Judge gone and to blow it all up again. Another part of him is so sick of new head coaches. It's been like a carousel since 2016. How do you feel about Judge coming back regardless of these last few games?
So, Joe Judge is back, Like that's basically it's being reported. Like read the tea leaves. Joe Judge is going to be back, and I think both me and you are in the Joe Judge shouldn't be back next year boat, right?
Yes, simple answer yes, but also it's a lot more complicated than that. But we can break that down. But simple answer yes.
Joe Judge takes are starting to get like wear on me a little bit, where they're becoming too much. Where it's like Joe Judge is being treated like he's an absolute moron, and there's things I disagree with on him, and like I said, I think he shouldn't be back. But I am starting to be like worn thin a little bit. Like I don't think Joe Judge is totally incompetent as people make him out to be. And I'm not dreading having Joe Judge as our head coach for the New York Giants in 2022. I'm not dreading that. What I'm dreading is John Mayer screwing up the cycle again, and we'll have a head coach on the hot seat with a brand new GM. And so are we rebuilding or are we going for it? Because the roster is somewhere in the middle of that, where you could go for it next year, or you could totally tear it down if that's like what a new GM wanted to do and come and start over again. And then you have a QB in the 4th year. So there's like so many things that are like are teetering on like teetering on like what are we doing? So that's what I'm dreading with Joe Judge coming back next year. But just him being the head coach next year, I'm sorry, but I'm not dreading it that much. I mean, like, there's still things I like about Joe Judge. I like his personality. I like the way he handles people. I think he wants personalities, not just, cookie cutter, robot people. Not 53 Daniel Jones is on the roster. I love the way him and Patrick Graham work, and Patrick Graham and like getting that hire right, and the way he hires assistant coaches. I like that he fired, Jason Garrett and Mark Colombo. And from what it looks like is Jason Garrett was forced on him, and not just forced on him, but forced to stay on him for way longer than it should have been happening. Joe Judge wanted to move off of Jason Garrett last season. And injuries have screwed him, and this is a bad offensive line construction. So like if they get in here and get a new OC and have a good draft, like I can see myself being back in on Joe Judge. I really can. But so it's like I'm not in like the Joe Judge is just a total idiot and like, this guy's a used car salesman. His press conferences, this guy's full of it. No, he's just he's full of it in press conferences. He literally said that to the media last week. He's like, what I say to the team is totally different than what I say to the public. Like, I'm not going back to my players in their individual meetings on Monday morning, cleaning up the film and saying, wow, good job, guys. You guys, so I'm not like, I don't hate Joe Judge. I don't think he's incompetent. I'm not fearful of him being my head coach for another year. What I am fearful of is them screwing up the cycle.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to put it. And that's why the situation is simple, where you want the head coach and the GM to be in sync with each other, but why it's complicated is that Joe Judge has done some things where it's like, well, I think the organization likes this process, and it is a legitimate question of, is Patrick Graham and the way that they've gone about working around the defense's just total lack of pressure and total lack of edge room, and the way that he's worked with Patrick Graham in that regard, is that enough of a reason to keep him hired and then keep him in the building? And then, like you said, the Jason Garrett impact of, was he forced? So all that just makes this very, very complicated. And I want to like Joe Judge. I really do. I'm not forgetting that 2020 season, it exists, and I think it matters, where a lot of the entire fan base was like, we're indifferent on Dave Gettleman, we're indifferent on John Mara, we're indifferent on a lot of these people in this organization, but Joe Judge is that one guy that we're going to rally around. That year does matter. There are things that Joe Judge does need to look at himself in the mirror this offseason. I think that even starts with some of his position coaches. Running backs coach. Has your position coach and has your running backs coach really stuck his foot in Saquon Barkley's ass and said, you need to be more of an efficient running back? That needs to happen. The development of these wide receivers are really the regression of Darius Slayton. Wide receivers coach. Is that a possible position coach that needs to change? Interior linebackers or the edge room. Losing Scherer, who I think was the linebackers coach last year, that's a possible spot that we need to look for, where the lack of progression of this edge room. There's a lot of things that need to improve with Joe Judge, including this coaching staff, possibly getting some more experience. So
yeah, and there's things I just like. I mean, and again, I'm on the side of we should move on from Joe Judge, but like I'm not. It's like Joe Judge being brought back. Like I'm not like dreading that. I'm just not. I'm dreading that we screw up the cycle now. And again, it might totally work. You get the right GM and it ends up working and it's happily ever after. But it's next year having a third year head coach on the hot seat with a brand new GM. And again, and being in that limbo of, are we going for it or are we rebuilding? Because there's not going to be patience with Joe Judge rebuilding in his third year.
No, absolutely not. All right, next question. From Glock Roach. Are you picking up Daniel Jones' fifth-year option? According to Over the Cap, the fifth-year option will be $21 million.
No, I am not. And I guess we might need to have like our big picture conversation on Daniel Jones, because I don't think Daniel Jones. Do you think Daniel Jones is coming back this year? No. I don't think he's coming back. I don't care what the beat reporters say. I don't think he's coming back.
There's just too much murkiness. There's too much weirdness around this injury, where
like it's clearly more than a neck strain.
Yeah, a diagnosis. We were texting about this. A diagnosis needs to eventually come out, and the more it's just week to week, not cleared for contact, the worse that you just have to get bad thoughts going in your brain. So I don't think he's coming back this year, and I hope that that's the worst that it gets.
Yeah, so like I don't think Jones is coming back this year, which sucks because, I mean, we talked about, looking at Jones with Freddie Kitchens, and the differences between Freddie Kitchens and Jason Garrett and seeing what happens, So there's obviously been a step down in QB play to Glennon, from Jones to Glennon. So, but I'm not, and we talked about it coming into this year. Year 3 is a big year. You kind of have to prove it, whether you like it or not, regardless of outside circumstances. And he just hasn't, like he's an unknown, and going into year 4 as an unknown usually means like a no, so like you can't bank on like, oh, he's going to figure it out. He's going to figure it out. So I would be in the no option, because it's not like you can't cut them beforehand like you used to on the 5th year option, where you could cut them the day before it kicks in and it doesn't, and so you don't have to pay any of it. So at this point, no, because it's like it said, it's 21 mil, and even if you wanted to franchise tag him, it's 28 mil. So you're talking about a difference of 7 mil, and that would be like, okay, he proved himself. We want to give him another year. We're franchising tag him. So kind of like prove yourself into that big, at least 5th year, whether it's through a franchise tag instead of the 5th year option. So right now, I would say no.
Yeah, and I think it's a combo of his performance towards the second half of the season, where you can say the offensive line, you can say Garrett, which those are two very valid reasons as to why a quarterback would not perform well. But thrown in there, I feel like there is just too. There was flashes to 2019 Daniel Jones were just not very good decision making. He had a couple games where there were some turnovers, and then just still a continual overall, like, no production. Just zero, no production, worse than what was happening, like, in 2020, So that's ultimately what it boils down to. And the injuries. This is the 3rd year in a row where you're missing, substantial time in the month of November and December, and that hurts, no matter if you're a winning team or a losing team.
Yeah, and I'm still stubborn and think DJ can end up being it, Yeah. I mean, I'm not as hell bent on like, hey, he's gonna figure it out. He's gonna figure it out like I used to be, but I still am stubborn where I do want to see him next year on with a new offensive coordinator and hopefully a rebuild offensive line. Like it's regardless of who the QB is. Like I think we all agree that they need to rebuild this offensive line once and for all.
Yep.
Like you stop screwing around with this offensive line, and I hope they take it that serious. So like Like, we've seen flashes. Flashes aren't enough, though, after year 3. It has to be consistent. And I still think we can get that from Daniel Jones. I do. But at this point, it hasn't happened. And it's like, if you ask me if I think Daniel Jones is the guy or not right now, it's no, I don't. Where halfway through this year, I would have told you yes. But it's, it just hasn't been good.
Yeah.
Where it was good to start this season, and then kind of, was all right for a stretch when guys were getting injured, when guys were injured, and it just hasn't never got back to good, So that's where I'm just kind of like, I'm not on the Daniel Jones train anymore. I'm not as anti him as most people are. I still do like DJ, and I do think he'll go somewhere and, and surprise people a little bit wherever it is, even if it's coming in as a backup and like, wow, man, Daniel Jones can play a little bit. But as of now, it's like, no, I can't give him the 5th year option because he hasn't earned it.
Yeah. Hope he comes out and he surprises us next year. I don't want that to come on another team. So, like I said, build this offensive line. Let's get this offseason right. Get a play caller in here that fits what Joe Judge wants to do. Now that may be a dangerous thing that fits what Joe Judge wants to do, but get a coordinator in here that can fit to the strengths of their players. Not even the freaking coach. Get a coordinator that can fit to the strength of the players or adjust. That's really what we want. All right. Bobby, can I read something? Because this mailbag is kind of short. Can I read something before we go on to the next question?
Sure. I guess we could do some reading.
Yeah, let's do some reading. Football fans. That's what we are. I'm sure we all love an action-packed, high-scoring NFL game, but with the latest no-brainer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, you'll be a winner once a single point is scored. New customers who bet just $1 on any team to score can win $100 in free bets. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you could still get in on all the NFL action. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports Contest. DraftKings is giving away all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total cash prizes with their first deposit. Betting is going to be a little bit tricky since everybody in the NFL is now on the COVID list. So what I want you to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code JOHNBOY. Bet $1 on any NFL team to score and win $100 in free bets if they score. You score with promo code JOHNBOY this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 years or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
We didn't hit on any news. Leonard Williams is injured and Kadarius Toney got COVID again.
Yeah, the way that I kind of summarize Kadarius Toney is just this season stemming back to spring workouts. Remember with the whole cleat thing and he was practicing shoeless? This has just been Murphy's Law. Like, what can go wrong will go wrong. And it's not necessarily like assigning a blame to anybody individually, but it's just Murphy's Law. That's how I am how I'm going to remember Kadarius Toney's season is Murphy's Law. And hopefully 5 years from now, we can look back on it and laugh and not look back on it and be like, it was the start of something bad.
The only thing that really worries me is the injuries with Kadarius.
He just he continued to find ways as the entire year went on to not be on the football field.
Yeah, I know. It sucks. But injuries, but it's been mostly because of injuries. Like he didn't miss any games because of COVID,
No.
And supposedly he probably wasn't going to be back this week anyways.
Missed the camp because of COVID, which I really think, I talked about this with Snacks on last Wednesday's mailbag when talking about the impact of some of the games earlier in the year and talking about the offense. Everybody missing, like the injuries weren't even just a problem throughout the season. They've been a problem all throughout the summer where Rudolph missed camp, Galladay missed camp, Toney missed camp, Barkley basically didn't participate in camp. Basically you had the back end of the roster that participated in training camp, guys that aren't even on the team and that were cut participated in training camp more than the actual 22 starters, So that's a thing where training camp is valuable. And we're going to talk about that with another question about Jake Fromm and Mike Glennon, how it's a little funny how people are Well, I'll get to my training camp point about that when we talk about Jake Fromm, Mike Glennon. Do we have, did you take that question out?
I don't think so.
All right, then
I
I'm gonna.
I took out because someone asked the next questions to that same person asked too, so I put the wrong one in.
All right, gotcha. So I'll get to a training camp point then. All right, next question. It's coming from Ben at Ben Feinstein 25. Have you noticed any difference between Jason Garrett and Freddie Kitchens so far?
Yeah, big time. Freddie Kitchens' offense is a lot more horizontal. Like it's just a lot more horizontal like types of routes where it's like digs, slants, drags, like just all more types of horizontal routes. And I noticed, especially this week, and this may have been like a Chargers game plan specific, but it just felt like they were trying to get that middle of the field part of like that's how they were trying to attack. But it's just something. It seemed like Mike Glennon was just getting off of it though, and then getting to his outlets. But he was getting off of it like maybe half a second before where like stuff would have opened up, and he wasn't throwing those passes over the middle, and consequently being late to like the outlets underneath. And it was just kind of like a mess offensively. And, you know, I blame that on Glennon, but I also blame it a little bit on Kitchens where it was kind of some all or nothing stuff where it's like, that's not what we were asking for. We weren't asking for all or nothing offensive plays. And we saw that, we heard that as a criticism of Freddie Kitchens in Cleveland. Yeah. Is that the offense, especially on like third downs, was just all or nothing. Where it's like you got 3 like huge routes downfield and there's nothing underneath. So that would be the difference. The stick concept has been there a little bit, but mostly like the stick concept has like been replaced with slants. Like they run a ton of slants, especially on like key downs. The run game has incorporated a lot more draw plays out of the shotgun. You know, like that's where they got some of their more successful runs this past week was draw plays. So yeah, it's just more of a horizontal offense where Jason Garrett's was a lot of isolation routes. Now, sometimes it looks like Freddie Kitchens is just running like 4 random routes and they're not working off of each other sometimes too, where they're all like at different levels. It's kind of weird sometimes. But yeah, there's definitely been differences.
Yeah. Less timing. I mean, I think that's been one of the main things, at least for me. This Jason Garrett's offense was almost completely timing, and this obviously, I think in any NFL offense, there are certain plays that are predicated around getting the ball out quick, you know, holding onto the ball. But this offense, I don't feel like is solely predicated on it like Garrett's was. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, that's 100% true.
Yards after the catch has been sort of a thing. I didn't check the data for the last 2 games because why? But, you know, at least after that Eagle game, and you just use your eyes too. Some of these skill position players, there's just in general, there's just more space for some of these guys to operate after they catch the ball versus Jason Garrett, where, you know, how many times are they catching the ball and their back is to the end zone? Yeah, man, and you were talking about Glennon. A tweet that I had drafted but I never tweeted. You criticized Daniel Jones for having slow processing with his ability to throw the ball. I mean, here, I give you Mike Glennon. Mike Glennon makes Daniel Jones look like Dan Marino with how slow his processing is. It's kind of unreal how bad Glennon has been. And, you know, underthrowing Kenny Golladay when he's not a burner. I mean, just come on, man. It's so bad.
Yeah, throwing up freaking 500, 50-50 balls to Evan Ingram like twice in the past week. Almost got Evan Ingram killed this past week on the play before the big Kyle Rudolph play. He almost got cut. Remember, he just threw the ball up to Evan Ingram in triple coverage, and like Evan Ingram got cleaned by the freaking safety. He missed Saquon in the flat on that 1 3rd down. Remember where he scrambled to the left, and it's like you had Saquon breaking open right there. It's like let it develop. Where I feel like Mike Glennon doesn't let plays develop. It's like 1 2. He's like, it's not there, and then he won't make any. He's not willing to make the tight throws over the middle. Where it's like, man, that's where you could have hit the Chargers this week, and you just kind of didn't hang in there and make those throws.
Yeah,
and they were there,
Yeah. Freddie Kitchens, safe to say. I mean, we knew this, but I mean, won't be the coordinator next year. But again, it would have been cool to see what Jones would do with Kitchens. Would it result in 20-plus point games? Probably not. But it just would have been cool, again, to evaluate, since it
would have been better, that's for sure.
That's the last thing that we basically had this season. And speaking of quarterback and talking about Mike Glennon, Travis Mocrates at Team Mocrates. It's definitely not how to say his name. But Travis asks, not saying Fromm is the QB of the future, but is it time to see what he can do? Glennon is a veteran, but it seems like it's proven he shouldn't start anywhere ever again. This is what I have to say about this that relates to training camp. Basically, a lot of people, I'm not even just saying this is Travis, but a lot of people are looking for Fromm, wanting Fromm. And I get it. At this point, we want something different. I get it. But then the same excuses that people make in training camp, because Fromm has been here for 2 weeks now. 2 weeks. And people want him to start. Meanwhile, we're 4 weeks into a summer practice. Giants don't look good in the preseason. Giants don't look good in training camp. And people make excuses for starters that have been there throughout the spring. And then the second year of a Jason Garrett system where the offense doesn't look good. That makes no sense to me. So think about that. When you evaluate, I want Jake Fromm to start right now. He's been here for 2 weeks, and this isn't even training camp. He's in the middle of a season where the practices aren't even as intense and the practices aren't even as in-depth as the training camp. So just keep that in mind.
Do you think you'll, at some point, will you get on the, like, all right, let's start Jake Fromm the last 2 games of the year train or anything like that?
Yes, I can. Absolutely.
I don't think Jake Fromm's ever going to be good. You know, like he was behind Davis Webb in Buffalo.
Yeah.
You know, like he's got a weak arm, you know, so it's like he can't make some of the throws that Mike Glennon can make. And I know Mike Glennon has sucked. Like, it's not a defense of Mike Glennon. So there's throws that he can't make that Mike Glennon can make. I don't know if he's going to be more. Maybe he'll be a little more accurate. His timing will probably it will probably look like a disaster, like more so of a disaster than what Mike Glennon is. So yeah. I get it too. Like, I want to say it too. I want to say let's play Jake Fromm. Like, I do. I want to say that, but I also just I just don't think Jake Fromm's going to be any good, and I do kind of trust the coaching staff a little bit that they know that like hey, we're not going to throw Jake Fromm in here.
Yeah.
Especially these past 2 weeks. Again, maybe weeks 17 and 18, it'd be a little bit of a different story. But for the time being, it's like I'm not going to be on the Jake Fromm train.
If the Giants' offense had the least amount of offensive touchdowns in the NFL with Daniel Jones, and then it's gotten worse with Mike Glennon, it hasn't gotten better, what do you want? What do you want to see out of Jake Fromm? That's the only thing where it's going to be worse. Where yes, it can only get better. Nope, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, and it's like they want to play the best players, and
even if they're not good, they want to play the best players.
Yeah, and you know, like for the wide receivers around them and everything, you know. So now again, I don't think Jake Fromm's gonna be good. I mean, Buffalo drafted him. Like, they spent a draft pick on him, and then the next year they signed Mitchell Trubisky to be their backup, and then he was behind Davis Webb on the practice squad in Buffalo. So I just don't think he's gonna be good. Like, I don't have any. There's zero hope for it. So to me, it's just like, if you think Mike Glennon is better, play Mike Glennon. That's where I'm at.
I agree. I get wanting to see something different, but just try and think with the brain.
We didn't get a mailbag question on this, but speaking of people we were calling to come in, Matt Parrott, they did a rotation. We didn't get any questions about that. They did the rotation finally with Matt Parrott and Nate Solder. In fact, Parrott may have played a little bit more than Solder this game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So that could be so Terrence McGarvey, he asked at Terrence_WM4, what are you watching for now that the season is in the gutter? What would you tell fans to look out for to give them a little bit of fun? So is this Billy Price at center? Ben Bredesen's hurt, waiting. I guess we have to wait for an update on him. Matt Parrott rotation at right tackle if they want to stick to that a little bit more. So are those some of the things that that you're going to be watching out for?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be. What sucks though is that it's so late with the Parrott thing, where it's like we need a new right tackle regardless. I don't care what Parrott looks like. Like honestly, Parrott can ball out Parrott could come in and ball out the next 4 weeks, and I'm still like we need to we need to add a right tackle.
Yeah, I'm all in on Evan Neal. Like I haven't watched anything yet, but from what we watched from last year when we did our preparation for the 2022 draft in the spring, just knowing that he's still recognized as the top tackle in the draft, I'm all in with one of those picks.
Yeah, or when it came a corner from NC State or whoever, but I'm all in it. But I still am in on the Matt Parrott thing, because you know what, he could be a swing tackle. But he looked good in pass pro this week. Like he kind of looked decent. He had that one really bad run play where everyone's like, "This is why Matt Parrott's not starting." It's like, no, stop. We're not gonna do the thing where Matt Parrott has one bad play and we're like, oh yeah, the whole coaching staff is right about this. No, they're not. They're wrong.
I intentionally did not clip that play because I did not want to be part of that narrative.
That was annoying me. It's like, you don't think you haven't seen Solder blow this play, and then he got freaking killed by Bosa later. So watching Thomas is fun.
What did you think of Price? You said you watched the film. Did you watch much of him? This was a PFF. This was his best PFF graded game, apparently.
Yeah, I thought he did all right. He was all right in the run game. Didn't have any bad plays in the pass game. Skura had some really bad ones. By the way, Hernandez and Parrott had some really nice stunt pickups. By the way, when they were together, it's just
wow.
It's just, I don't know. I hate blaming Solder because a lot of them are Hernandez's fault, but it's just like anyone who's next to Solder can't pick up a stunt.
And it was Hernandez who was next to Solder in 2019, and now he was next to him again this year. Man, that's pretty bad for Hernandez. Yeah, Bobby, there was a mailbag question that you didn't put in here, but I think we have time, and there's still another ad that we need to read. Yeah, we got time. So, as fans right now, we're looking at it like there probably needs to be 4 new offensive linemen in here next year. Like, in an optimal world, if Giants fans had their way, 4 new offensive linemen would be here next year. And center, because we're not sure what Nick Gates' progress is going to be like coming back. Lemieux, we're not sure what his progress is going to be looking like coming back. But also, Shane Lemieux, we had questions about him heading into this year anyway, about his potential and his ceiling, right? Right tackle, we already know, and then obviously one of the guard spots. But that's not realistic. I was talking with Dan Schneider and Nick Filato on a crossover thing that we did. I don't think it's realistic that we're going to have 4 new starters. Maybe 3, maybe 2. I don't know about 4. So I think Bredesen's here. Like, we traded for him and he's here. So I think that's a guy that can stay. Hernandez might be brought back on a very, very cheap deal. So where are you at right now? There's still a couple weeks left, but basically the season is over. I think Bredesen is going to wind up being a starter next year, and that may be the guy that sticks and stays, and then possibly new center, definitely new right tackle. That's what I'm thinking right now. Could change.
I would see Shane Lemieux starting over Bredesen whenever he comes back. I would give that edge to Shane. And then I do think Nick Gates is going to start. I don't know. I just believe in him,
yeah.
And at center. So, but I also do think they can go add 3 offensive linemen in this draft. They did it in 2020. They added 3 offensive,
Yep.
And it does, and instead it could be, a first and a second, or maybe a first. That would be crazy. And then a third. There's no reason they can't invest in offensive line like that in this draft. And how they may, they're going to add some people in free agency. I don't know who, but they'll add some type of pieces in free agency. I don't know about, not to say O-line, but they're going to have some type of free agents brought in on cheap deals. So that could impact it. But Bredesen, I don't really have any investment in, because he hasn't shown me anything. Even when he plays, he hasn't shown me to be really good.
But I think he has the most promise thinking back to when we acquired him and to, when we got him, that was a guy that we were like, this guy should be the starter. Now, it obviously hasn't worked out. Injuries and performance hasn't been up to par, but, I still like to think that if this guy is going to be on the team, that he's going to be on the team. And whether he starts or whether he is a backup and he's a rotational piece, I think he may be here. So, we talked about, we didn't talk about Leonard Williams when you mentioned Kadarius Toney. So Leonard Williams may be out for the year, may not be out for the year. He's definitely out against Dallas. Elbow injury. Was first reported that it was really, really bad. And then the next day it came out that the reports aren't as bad, that he may actually be able to play through it. He's a psychopath. Kind of like a quiet talking point, but he hasn't missed a single game in his career. He played 15 games in 2019, but I think that's just because of the way that the trade worked between the Jets and the Giants, that he had 2 bye weeks, I guess. So 15 games in 2019. Has not missed a game throughout his entire career. I think 107 straight games in which he started. And this game against the Dallas Cowboys is going to be the first game that he's going to miss. And this season, think he was going to finish with less than 20 QB hits anyway. But now it's kind of official that Leonard Williams, this will be the third time, I think, in his 7 or 8 year career that he will be finishing with under 19 QB hits. No, it's the second time. The second time where he's going to be finishing with under 19 QB hits, which is very, very impressive. When you look at some of the other top-tier pass rushers in this league, I know everybody loves Shaq Barrett. That's a guy that I always point to. I think he only has like 2 or 3 20-plus QB hit careers in his entire career. And everybody goes Google Gaga over him. So I love Leonard Williams. Long story short. And no matter how much time he misses, I'm going to miss seeing him play.
Yeah, seeing him going off the field was like, oh gosh, he freaking, like, this guy's hurt? He's never been hurt ever. Hopefully we can find out some more on what the actual injury is and not just elbow.
Second in the league in tackles amongst defensive linemen as well, which I want to ask you.
Well, first, yeah, I still can't say he was first because he was first and then he missed an entire game and then he moved down to second.
You know who's like third or fourth?
Austin Johnson.
Yeah. Research Rick compiles that every week, which I love. I want to ask you, because somebody like me who's like, tackles can be inflated, blah, blah, blah. That's always like in the back of my brain, even though I've come around to like, hey, tackles are a valuable thing. Let's just face it. No matter when you're making them on the field, if you're around the football, that's a valuable thing. All right. Doesn't have to always be like an analytical, like, here is your value and here is your grade, right? What do you think of that? Like when you hear that Leonard Williams is number 1 in the NFL in tackles amongst defensive linemen, especially like weighing and considering that the Giants' rush defense is not that good. Like, how do you weigh that in terms of what does that mean for Leonard Williams' season and how good of a season he's having? It
means that he's being relied on to like stop the run on his own, essentially. And when you have those tackle numbers from the interior defensive line, where is that coming from? It's not coming from 5-6 yards down the field. It's coming from 1, 2, 3 yards down the field and making run stops. And Leonard Williams has done that for his entire career, and they even like track run stops, where he's like second in the NFL over like the last 4 or 5 years in run stops for defensive tackles after Aaron Donald. So that's what it tells me.
I love it. All right, we got to talk about one more thing. I want to finish Terrence's question about what are we looking for? Because there's a couple things on the defensive side of the ball, very minute, but 2 players, 3 players that I'm kind of looking out for there. But this winter, upgrade your daily routine with Bespoke Post and their new seasonal lineup of must-have Box of Awesome collections bring you the most unique goods every single month. So, Bobby Skinner, I got a ton of stuff from Bespoke. And I even ordered some stuff outside of how they kind of sent us some stuff and they gave us some stuff. But I ordered some stuff outside to help my mom get Christmas gifts for her people in her life. So I helped her Christmas list out, which I think that's just as effective. So I have the Weekender bag. So Bobby, we're going to Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl in a couple weeks. I may be bringing that Weekender bag as a carry-on. I have the smoking and infusion kit. I have 2 of them. So I'm giving 2 of those out as Christmas gifts this year. Smoking and infusion kit, helps age like alcohol, some, liquor, helps put a little smoky taste to your food. I have a machete. Snacks and I both have the machete from Bespoke Post. We are going to have a machete fight. So, no matter what you're into, Box of Awesome has you covered. From winter cocktails to cozy threads and camping gear essentials, Box of Awesome has collections for every part of your life. So to get started, take the quiz at boxofawesome.com. Your answers will help them pick the right box of awesome items for you. Each box consists only $45. They're only $45 each box, but they have over $70 worth of gear inside, which I found. I was even surprised. Like, there are stuff that I order, but you have to like Mary Poppins it, but there's still more crap inside that you got to dig out, and it's awesome. So there's always more stuff in that Box of Awesome. So what I want you to do is get 20% off with your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com. Enter the code GIANTS at checkout. Boxofawesome.com, code GIANTS, 20% off your first box. Thank you to Bespoke Post. Bobby Skinner, to finish off Terrence's question. I thought Quincy Roche had a pretty solid game against the Chargers, where he just makes plays where it's like, wow, he's playing fast and he's playing quick and he's playing aggressive every week. Maybe he doesn't have a great game, but there are just plays where I'm watching on TV where it's like, yep, that's a Quincy Roche play that he makes, and there's not a lot of guys on this defense where you can say that. Wow, he made a really good play there.
How about Lorenzo Carter making his best play of the year and Justin Herbert bombing it for 65 yards?
I don't know if you listened to the recap pod, but I said that was Lorenzo Carter's best rep of 2021. And Bobby, when have we ever seen Lorenzo Carter bend the edge? Like, usually he has that stem move where, Grump said the line, one arm is longer than two. So he has that stem move where he's grabbing a hold of a guy's jersey and then he's kind of bull rushing from there. He bent the edge against one of the league's best left tackles, got a really good QB hit on Justin Herbert, but Justin Herbert did Justin Herbert things. So Roche, Aaron Robinson's fun to watch out for. Aziz, can Aziz catch Lawrence
By the way,
Taylor's?
Aziz got credited for a sack on Sunday.
He did?
Yeah, I was looking at the stat book.
When did that happen? That wasn't his. No, he already broke the rookie sack record. I already clipped that.
But I'm saying he got accredited for a sack on Sunday, though.
So he has 7.5 now.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I knew that, but I'm forgetting the play. So he needs 2 more sacks to tie Lawrence Taylor's rookie record.
No.
That is unofficial. So if he gets
Taylor.
3 more, if he gets 3 more sacks, then he will be the official rookie sack leader. So those are things that I'm looking out for as well. And can Kenny Galladay get his first touchdown grab?
Are you almost rooting for it to not happen now?
No, I'm not rooting it for that.
It'd be kind of funny if it just doesn't happen. We don't get a Kenny Galladay touchdown this year.
Oh,
I kind of wanted to be with Daniel Jones and not Mike Glennon.
No, at this point it needs to happen.
It's going to be a huge celebration whenever it does.
Yes. I don't care who it's with. All right, we have one more question.
Ask it.
Jay Cone at Jay Cone Man. What is a realistic timeline for the Giants to be back to winning football? What is the most important step to be taken in order to get closer to winning football for this team? So what's the realistic timeline for Giants to be back to winning football? We'll attack that first.
I don't know. Like I literally sat and thought about this question for like 10, 15 minutes. It's because the roster is in limbo. Again, like we talked about at the beginning with the Joe Judge question, where it's like they could realistically be a playoff team next year. Like they fix the offensive line, or at least get halfway close to fixing the offensive line this offseason. They add, like say they go O-line edge in round 1, and both of those guys are slam dunk picks. And so that like improves the defense a ton. And Jones looks better under the new O-line and new OC. Like they could be a playoff team next year if they could stay healthy. Because let's remember how they were screwed by injuries this year too. Like injuries happens to everyone, but it did happen more to the Giants than the majority of teams. Like we can't discount like how 2020 they stayed very healthy, and 2021 they've been the opposite of that.
I'll just throw this out there because I've been thinking about it. Not gonna lie, Giants suck. Daniel Jones isn't here, so your brain goes to some funny places. Any chance they go out and they get Russell Wilson?
I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world.
I'm starting to think about it.
I'm not really entertaining that until it can happen.
I'm starting to think about it.
See, I really haven't given it any thought. Like, I'd be willing to trade, depending on what it was. I wouldn't trade both the first round picks this year.
Here's my level of thinking about it. I'm thinking about it happening, not thinking about how it can happen. I'm thinking about it happening now, not about how it could happen. When I start thinking about how it could happen, that's when I'm probably going to talk myself out of it.
Yeah, that's why I haven't started thinking about it yet.
Yeah. No, but I'm one step further than you in the process. I would like it, not gonna lie.
Is one step further being unrealistic?
No, Bobby, at this point, which I really don't like the shaming on that sometimes happens on social media. Like, don't shame anybody for thinking of something that, maybe somewhat crazy, but is not out of the realm of possibility. Like, this team stinks, and there's only so much Joe Judge, Daniel Jones offense and GM future that you could talk about. There's only so much you could talk about. So
yeah,
if
we can't handle 6 days between games.
No. If you're throwing a little, hey, Russell Wilson maybe wants to be a Giant, it's been the talking point for a couple years, can it happen conversation, I'm all for it. Like, let's rock and roll. Why not? Let's get a little crazy.
I'll wait till March.
Wait till March. Do I want to answer this question? Realistic timeline for the Giants to be back to winning football?
I don't know. It's 2 years, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It depends on if...
What are you talking about winning football? You're talking about going to the playoffs or, like, being a Super Bowl contender?
I guess playoffs. I guess, like, winning football, like, let's start getting into the playoffs. Let's start winning some meaningful games in September and October. And
it could be next year. Like, it's not crazy to say next year.
No. I don't think so either. Really does depend on the quarterback position, though, and if the GM and the coach and John Mara will give the okay for this GM and then Joe Judge, if they want to get their own quarterback, then things may be set back. Which, that's not a bad approach if, again, using Daniel Jones as almost like a bridge guy, right? You're not going to pick up his fifth-year option, so that's going to be $21 million that are going to, not come off the books necessarily, but it's not going to be counted against the cap. The Giants' cap situation is bad this offseason. It's not bad in 2023. So if you build through the draft this offseason, which that's what you're supposed to do as an NFL team, you still have some free agents that you signed this year, and this past offseason that are on the team, and then you see what you got, right? And that's the way that you're
players. There is good players.
That's the way that you're kind of supposed to do it. When you draft that quarterback, it's hey, let's have somewhat of a team around him, and then rock and roll for those 4 or 5 years after. And the Giants failed to do that for Daniel Jones. So, let's answer the second part of this question. The most important step to be taken in order to get closer to winning football for this team.
The offensive line.
Offensive line. For me, it is a philosophical approach that is communicated between front office, coaches, and players that is centered around, we want to be a franchise that, this is the end of the show, I'm going to drop an F-bomb. We want to be a franchise that fucking scores points. None of this, control the clock, punch you in the mouth for 60 minutes. You can say all of that. End the sentence with score fucking points. I'm tired of it. I have gathered data today, all day, from 1925 to 2021. The Giants historically, unless you're talking about, a good stretch of Eli Manning's career, but there was some duds thrown in his career too. The Giants are a very poor franchise when it comes to scoring points. Very, very poor. Score points. It's how you win. It has to start at the top. Communicated to coaches, communicated to players. This is our approach. This is our identity. Score points. That's the name of the game. And until that approach is felt, don't think we're going to go anywhere. Could be no shit Sherlock, but it's clearly not felt. When Joe Judge is saying in his post-game press conference, you sometimes shoot yourself in the foot when you have this approach that you want to score as many points as possible. It's not necessarily what I'm looking for, Joe. That's what I got. That's a mailbag.
All right, that's a mailbag pod. We'll be back on Friday for a preview pod of the Cowboys. Did I hear correctly that you got club seats?
Yeah, DraftKings sent 4
How come
sweet
I didn't get
tickets.
notified of this?
Well, they were sent to me, and you're sick and you're in Florida.
But how did you get them and I didn't even hear about them?
John Boy Courtney sent them to me.
Oh, send them to me, Courtney.
What do you mean? You're why would they send you tickets to a New Jersey football game when you're in Florida?
I don't know. They could have sent them to a freaking Orlando Magic game. Like, I would love to get some club seats to an Orlando Magic game or something.
Hey, you take that up with DraftKings. We just they're gonna be here for a minute with us. So take that up with them.
DraftKings, send me to freaking. I want to go. I want to freaking be in the club seats. I want to sit down freaking near the freaking floor in Orlando. Okay, it's a very cheap ticket. Hook a brother up. So that's bullcrap. But anyways, we're previewing the Cowboys game. Thank you, DraftKings, for all you do. We'll see you on Friday. By the way, did you write down the picks for the Friday show?
I did. Whether that post-it note is thrown away or not is to be determined. Is this it? Nope. I may have to re-listen to the show and write them down again.
All right, we'll see you guys on Friday. Until then, let's go Big Blue.